Hey everybody, welcome back to the Giver Method channel. My name is Jake and I'm glad you're able to join me. Now today we're going to be talking about how you can stop waiting on others' permission slip, or other people to give you the green light so you can finally start living more authentically and making a greater impact in your life and the lives of those around you. And so I want to frame this up by asking a couple questions or things that might hit close to home for you. Have you ever had a dream, maybe a bold idea or even that gut level nudge, and instead of acting on it, you paused and you thought, and you maybe thought to yourself hey, let me run this by a few people first, just to make sure it's okay. Or maybe it sounded more like, hey, I really want to make sure, that this change, this thing, I want to do this thing, to make things better for myself or for those around me. But I need to know if everyone else is on board before I do anything. If you've ever felt like you were waiting for someone else to say yes, that's a good idea, or yes, now is the right time, guess what? You're not alone. You're not alone. There's too many people out there who think that they're stuck, broken, frustrated, overwhelmed. They're waiting for that permission slip, that green light to go, for someone to say that. Guess what? There's tons of people out there experiencing that. You're stuck in this idea of what we call the permission loop. And trust me, I've lived there, I've been there myself. So maybe you are a parent who wants to change things, like how you're running things in your home, or finally go after something that lights you up, but you keep pulling the people around you, your spouse or your friends or your own parents, trying to make sure that you do it the right way. Maybe you're the entrepreneur with a vision that just won't leave you alone, but you're still sitting on you got it sitting here on the back burner while you're waiting for someone more successful to say yeah, go for that. That should work. Or maybe you're an employee who knows you're meant for more, but you're hesitating or second guessing, or maybe waiting for your boss to notice, a partner to agree, or a friend to validate your next move. And what I've seen this time and time again, I've seen it over and over again, and what I've had to learn the hard way, and I've had to walk a lot of people through, is that the permission that you're waiting for isn't coming. There's not someone waiting there to give you that permission slip or turn on the green light, because they're not you. They don't see what you see. They're not carrying they're not carrying your calling or the thing that you're being pulled to do. So there's no one out there that can give you that green light. I want to dive deep into this and unpack it for you in many different ways. My name is Jake Talbert, like I mentioned earlier, and I'm the author and founder of this book. It's called The Giver Method. I'll put a link in the description where you can go get access to it so you can get the full details. Everything we cover today is here in the book. This thing came out in November. I launched it in November. It's on Amazon, and since coming out, it's become an Amazon bestseller. It's sold tons of copies, has tons of 5-star reviews. I highly recommend you go get yourself a copy. It's the best $10 you could invest in yourself. There'll be a link in the description to go get access to the book, or just go to Amazon, pause the video, pull up Amazon, The Giver Method by Jake Talbert, get yourself a copy. It is the best $10 you can invest in yourself. And what people love about it, what constant feedback is they love the fact that, number one, I've been in their shoes. Everything is grounded in my story of being a parent, just like yourself, or an entrepreneur, or I've worked in that corporate 9-to-5, within that sea of cubicles. And so I've walked in similar paths that they have. And so as I give ideas and suggestions, it comes from that side of things. The other side is that every chapter has worksheets, exercises, things that you can do that are meant and designed for people like you who have busy schedules already, where you don't have all the time in the world to just burn it all down and start from scratch. So once again, go get yourself a copy. It's the best $10 you can invest in yourself. Now, as I said, it grounded very much in my story. So I'll never forget the day that a lot of this hit me. I was sitting in my car. It was after a long day, and I was working in my, my safe job, my corporate job, that people, say you should go get. I had this idea that I just couldn't shake. This idea of a thing I could go create, a business, and a potential business venture, that I wanted to build. This is would lead towards a life I wanted to create. But instead of moving forward, I found myself spiraling through this mental checklist of okay, well, maybe I should check with my mentor, or I need to talk to my wife, make sure she's on board, or should I wait till I have more money saved to do that? What will my family think? Are they going to think I'm crazy walking away from something that seems secure? And what are people going to think when I say that I'm doing this thing that has nothing to do with me? And that, gosh, there's so many other thoughts that spiraled that you may have had similar thoughts when you've had these sorts of ideas. But that's when I saw it. I was giving everyone else veto power over my life and over my power. I was handing off the decisions that only I could live with to people who wouldn't be living with them, the choices I made. And while I was waiting to feel ready or approved, my energy was fading, my creativity was totally suffocating, and my sense of purpose, gosh, I was completely buried under everyone else's expectations and in a job role that didn't fit me. And so what changed everything was learning to give myself this internal permission to want what I want, to start before I'm ready, and to evolve even if it makes other people uncomfortable. And once I started doing that, just things shifted. Relationships like my marriage, things like that got stronger. My parenting felt more grounded. The work became more aligned. And maybe most important of all, I started liking who I was again. And it was such a weird feeling. And what I love is to back all things up in the video and in the book and all sorts of data science research that's out there. So there's so much research out there that shows that people who make decisions based on their internal values instead of an external approval, they report higher life satisfaction, stronger stress resilience, and way less second guessing. But beyond those sort of stats, like the real transformation comes when you finally stop asking for, when you stop asking permission to be yourself. You can show up and be authentic, because that's when your gifts can genuinely show up. That's when your influence can become authentic. That's when your confidence starts growing from the inside out. And so today, I want to walk you through these things. I want you to, these are going to be 6 permission-breaking principles. Simple shifts that help you to step out of these approval traps and into more of an authentic authority. Now, it's not about becoming, defiant or selfish in any sort of way. It's about making decisions that align with who you are while staying open to support that actually helps you, not holding you back. Once again, like I mentioned, it's all going to be grounded in what's here in the Giver Method. If that hits home to you, get it on Amazon. Go to thegivermethod.com. Check out the other ways that we help people. Go follow us on all the social media channels, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, all under the handle of the Giver Method. And then, if you're looking for support, one-on-one attention, I opened up a couple of one-on-one coaching spots. You can check out the coaching page down below and learn more about what that looks like. And then if you lead a team, run a podcast, host some sort of an event, and you think this message could serve your audience, and I'd love to talk about how we could bring this platform to them in some very real and actionable ways. There's a link about speaking and podcasting. And of course, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications so that you don't miss out on future content. Want to make sure that you're able to see these things that I put out every single week so that you can start living the way that you're wanting to live without waiting for other people's permission. So if you've been holding back, hesitating, doubting whether you're maybe allowed to grow or not, or you want more in your life or to do something different, this is your sign. Take this as your permission slip and your sign to start moving forward. And I'm going to give you the ways to do that. So let's talk about how you give yourself permission. You give yourself that green light that you've been waiting for. And so our first way is there's a permission pattern spotting system. You got to look for the permission pattern and have a system where you spot it in action, where are you still waiting for that permission? How do you spot the patterns that are keeping you stuck? Something most people don't realize, permission seeking isn't always loud. A lot of times it hides just in plain sight, like a background noise in your life that you've just gotten so used to. But when you learn how to spot it, everything will shift. And trust me, this isn't about judgment. This is about awareness, because you can't change a pattern that you don't know that you're stuck in. And that's the pattern you're stuck in right now. So what does permission seeking actually look like? It shows up when you're stuck in this consultation loop. You got to ask these 5 different people what they think before I can give myself permission to act. Or the experience that validation delay that there is. Where you know what you want to do, but you wait until you feel safe enough for because it's something that you want someone else to give you the green light on. And here's the really sneaky one. All right, there's this paralysis that comes with consensus. The moment when someone expresses doubt and suddenly you're backpedaling on the thing you're called to do, even though you were sure of it, full on, I'm in 5 minutes ago. And that probably sounds familiar to a lot of you. Now here's the wild part. It feels responsible. We're doing the right thing. We're being adults, we're being, we're being thorough, thoughtful, smart, whatever. But there's a difference between seeking insight and handing over the authority. One adds wisdom to your decision-making, the other lets someone else run your life. And here's a simple thing. Here's a couple things you can try that are going to help with this. A challenge you could do for 1 week. Keep track of how you make decisions. Once again, nothing fancy. Open up a notes app. Maybe at the end of the day, you journal about it. But try to think about it, multiple times throughout the day, where it's did I make decisions quickly and confidently? Did I delay anything while seeking input from others? Did I change my mind based on someone else's doubt? Once again, you're just writing down with no shame, no judgment, just pattern watching. This alone starts to build this muscle of awareness to it. And then you can do this permission dig, permission archaeology, if you want to think about it that way, where you look back over the last 6 months. Can you find a moment, just one, where you didn't go after something because you were waiting for someone else to say go, or someone else to give their insights? Maybe it's a business idea, a parenting shift, a boundary that you needed to set, or even just a personal change that you felt ready for, but you didn't do it. Ask yourself, like, what was I afraid would happen if I moved forward without permission? And 9 times out of 10, you'll realize that fear wasn't about the action. It was about the reaction that you were expecting from others. And that fear, it kept you from the very progress that you were craving, and think about where you could have been by now. And so this awareness work, this recognition, like, it's just one step in this permission revolution change you're making in yourself. Because once you start seeing how often you hand away the authority and start to take it back, you stop waiting for the green light that you've always been waiting for someone to give. Like, it's yours to give. When that happens, you start making decisions faster, you're trusting your instincts again, and you start becoming the version of you that doesn't just ask, like, hey, is this okay? But instead it's like, hey, this is who I am, and this is what I'm building. Let's go do this thing. Like, let's go be confident. And so that, like, builds into all the rest of the principles. Is first we got to spot it, okay? Now, our second one is, like, there's the 4 permission types that you give yourself. These are 4 areas, green lights, permission slips, whatever, that you don't need to wait for anymore. Give yourself permission to change these sort of things. There are these 4 areas most people are secretly waiting for permission to do something, and they don't realize it, And so I'm talking about, like, these deep, like, hidden green lights we're hoping somebody else is going to hand us. A mentor, a spouse, a boss, a society, somebody. But the truth is, no one's coming to give you these. And you don't need them from anybody. The moment you stop waiting, and just start handling them yourself, like, everything will shift. So, like, let's walk through it. The first permission area that we want to look at is, like, permission to want what you want. And that sounds simple, right? But let's be honest, how many of us have talked ourselves out of our dreams before we even get started? You don't need to justify your dreams. You don't need to run them through some sort of a committee. If it's something stirring in you, a goal, a calling, a craving, whatever, like, it's there for a reason, and just let yourself want it without guilt. Now, the second one is you have permission to start before you're ready. Oh my goodness. Wish I could get this through to so many people. Like, this is, like, crashes momentum for people. We think we need, like, more experience and more clarity, a better plan. We got to figure it all out. But usually that comes after you start. And so the practice here is pick one thing you've been overthinking and just give yourself a start date. Not a finish date, a start date. No matter how small of a start it is or imperfect of a start it is, just start it. Do something. The third one is there's this permission to mess up. Like, perfectionism is fear in disguise, and fear hates experimentation. So we try to start using experiment language. I remember people who, they're like, we're being responsible. Like, we got to be doing it. I want to look the right way. No, that's not what it is. It's perfectionism. It's fear in disguise. So experiment language, how you can do that. So don't say, like, well, this better work. Like, instead, like, think like, hey, I'm going to test this and see what I learn. Hey, we're going to give this a try, and it may not work, but hey, we're going to reflect on it and see what happens. It's amazing how freeing it is when the failure becomes data instead of shame. And then the fourth one is permission to outgrow who you used to be. This is a big one, okay? It might be the biggest of them. Like, you are allowed to change. You're allowed to want, like, to move in a new direction, even if people don't understand it. Even if the old you would be surprised by who you're becoming. Just write it down if it helps. Like, it's not selfish to evolve. Like, it's totally honest, and here's who I want to become. We spend so much time trying to earn other people's approvals for the next move. Like, the real breakthrough comes when you stop waiting for someone to say, go ahead and do that. And you just start saying it to yourself. And no, like, this isn't just about creating confidence. Like, yeah, that happens. But it's about creating momentum. You don't need to master all 4 of these things overnight. Just pick one. Give yourself permission today. Like, not in theory, but in actual action. That's the moment you stop circling the runway and you actually start to take off. Which leads us to the third one, which is, like, there's your inner compass. Like, this idea, like, this inner compass you have isn't broken. You've just been receiving, like, you haven't been listening to what things are supposed to, like, what it's telling you. Like, how do we build confidence in our own decisions from the inside out? And so if we're honest, most of us have been trained from early on to believe that someone else knows better than we do about our careers, our families, our dreams. Like, there's people who are experts in it that know more than I do. Well, and after years of second guessing and people pleasing, it's no wonder your inner compass feels shaky. But the good news is, like, decision-making confidence isn't something that you're either born with or not. It's just something that you build. It's like a muscle. Your brain might be used to scanning for the validation, but, like, that doesn't mean that you can't teach it to trust your gut again. So here's some things you can do to start building this authority back into yourself piece by piece. And so a couple of steps you can think about. Step one would be collect proof that you're not bad at making decisions as maybe you think you are. Call it like a win file. Go back over the last year and jot down 10 decisions that turned out great. They don't even have to be huge. Maybe you navigated a tough conversation with your kid, or you picked the right time to say no to something at work. You trusted your gut about a business move. Like, the point here is to remind yourself, like, you made good calls before and you can do it again. Now, the second one is going to be define what matters to you. So grab a sticky note or open a note app on your phone and write down your 3 to 5 personal values, like growth or honesty, impact, freedom, presence. And now use those as a filter when you're faced with a decision. Which choose which choice that you have lines up best with who it is I'm trying to become. And you'll be amazed how clarity starts to just show up more, because you now have an opinion, what it is that you're going to be going for based off those values. And then the third step there is going to be to give solo decisions a test drive. Once a week, do the solo decision day where it's like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to ask anybody for what their feedback is. I'm not going to poll a group. I'm not going to ask a friend what they thought. Just you trusting your judgment. Start small. Hey, what am I going to wear? What to make for dinner? How to spend my free hour? And then work your way up. Start to notice, you're going to start to notice these changes. Something powerful happens. It's exhausting trying to manage everyone else's opinions, but energizing when you make choices that actually feel like you. And then a bonus step here is track the wins and lessons. After you've made a decision on those solo calls, take a second and jot down what did you choose? Why did you choose it? How did it play out for yourself? You'll start seeing patterns. Your instincts are probably better than you're giving them credit for. When you learn to trust yourself again, everything speeds up. You stop waiting for everyone to agree. You start taking action that matters, even if it's imperfect. And you become someone who doesn't just get knocked off course every time someone disagrees with you. You start ignoring certain advice and choose to lead your life from the inside out. That's the kind of leadership that changes families and businesses and teams, because it starts with finally owning your own direction. And then our fourth one is going to be setting boundaries without burning bridges. We have to hold our ground in these things, but we also have to keep the peace. The moment that you stop waiting for permission and start living from your own authority, not everyone's going to be on board and love it. And it's not always because they're against you. Sometimes it's just they're not used to, they're used to being part of the decision-making loop. You've trained them to expect what you're going to say, and now you're changing the rules. So, what do you do when people push back? Give unsolicited advice, or start maybe guilt tripping without even realizing that they're doing it, for making some sort of a change or a move, without consulting them. You don't have to be defensive. You don't need to explain every detail, and you definitely don't need to go back into hiding. What you need is some simple actions, some simple scripts, some things that give you calm and confidence. So the first thing is use loving authority is the approach. And this is perfect for those moments where you're taking a stand, but you still want to preserve the relationship. And so try saying something like, hey, I've decided to fill in the blank, whatever your decision was, because it aligns with my values and goals. I know you might have questions, and I'm happy to hear them, but I'm moving forward either way, and I'd love your support, but I'm okay if we see it differently. Once again, it's communicating confidence, kindness, clarity, and when you have these phrases you can say and you can write down variations to it, it's just so easy to open those up when you need them. Keep a few redirect responses, in your pocket for those moments when someone tries to offer you too much input again. Try something like, hey, thanks for caring enough to weigh in. I've already thought this through, and I'm trusting my decision right now. Or, hey, I value our relationship, and which is exactly why I need to actually make this call myself. Redirecting shifts the energy. It stops it from falling into justification mode, and just reminds you hey, we want to be a part of each other's lives, and let's go build this thing together. And then repeat yourself gently. This is that, I call this there's the broken record move. If someone keeps circling back, just calmly repeat yourself hey, I hear you, and I've made my decision. You don't owe anyone some sort of dissertation or big explanation. Most of the time, the more you explain, the more it invites debate. So keep it short, keep it kind, stay firm. And then naturally tailor these scripts to who you're talking to. Not everyone needs the same explanation, but the tone should stay grounded and gracious. So to family, it might be hey, this might not be the choice that you'd make, but it's what feels right to me in life right now. To coworkers or your bosses, like, hey, I've thought this through and I'm ready to move forward with this approach. With friends, it's like, hey, I always appreciate your thoughts, but this one I'm going to trust my gut on. Like, if you can't communicate these types of boundaries in a calm and clear way, like, you're either going to fall back into approval seeking or create friction that you don't want. But if you hold your ground with grace, everything will change for you. People start respecting your decisions more. They stop second guessing you every time you have a conversation. You model what's healthy and permission-free living looks like, which gives people around you permission to do the same, because like, boundaries, they're not walls. They're clarity, and clarity creates more connection when it's delivered with courage and care. Now, our fifth one is going to be like, there's this speed of trust decision-making, like how you make the call and trust the pivot, how you decide even faster and build momentum and stop overthinking everything. Because most of us don't get stuck because we're lazy. We get stuck because we're trying to make that right choice. The perfect one, the one that guarantees success and makes everyone else nod in agreement. So we research and we ask and we wait for signs and we stall, and then suddenly things we're excited about are like, they go cold. That spark you had, it fizzles under the weight of trying to do everything so right. And I call that like your permission seeking disguised as preparation. And if you're not careful, it becomes your comfort zone. So start making decisions based off of like speed of trust, like not trust in the outcome, but trust in yourself. You don't need all the answers to make the next move. You just need enough clarity to act and enough confidence to correct the course if it's not quite right. And so there's 3 simple ways that you can do this to build this muscle. All right. The first one is there's reversible or not filter. Ask yourself, like, can I adjust later if this doesn't go as planned? If yes, give yourself 24 hours. Decide, act, and move. Like, just do something. We treat every decision like this permanent thing. It's like most of them aren't. Then there's the try the 80% rule, where if you've got about 80% of what you need to feel good about that call, go. Like, you'll learn that you're going to learn so much more in doing than sitting in analysis mode for another 2 weeks. And spoiler alert, that missing like 20% usually shows up when you start taking action, not before. And then the third thing is like, less talk and decide sooner. So getting advice is great, but like, not if it becomes the excuse for the delay. So set like a quick time limit, get the perspectives you need, then make the call. Don't wait for like, choruses to call out, before you trust your gut. Because here's the truth. You don't build confidence by thinking. You build it by deciding and by moving and by proving to yourself that if something doesn't go as planned, I can just pivot or adjust. That's the difference between people who create impact and people who stay stuck. They don't wait until they're totally ready. They decide and then they figure out as they move. And the people around them, they start trusting them more because they trust themselves. Man, that's how you build momentum, like, and actually get it going. That's how leadership starts, and that's how your gift stop collecting the dust and finally get used and can become these superpowers people are waiting for you to be able to, create for them. So the next time you find yourself spinning in circles, try to find, if you're trying to find that perfect answer, once again, it doesn't exist. Ask yourself, like, what's the move I can make today? Not perfectly, but just honestly. And then make the call, trust the pivot, and keep going forward. And it leads us to the 6th and final one, which is like, there's the green light for others, like how you lead without controlling, and empower without preaching. Once you stop asking permission to live the way you want to live life, you start becoming the person who helps others do the same. And that's a big shift. That's where your influence will multiply. Permission giving isn't something that you do for yourself. Like, it becomes like something people feel when they're around you. Like, you start giving yourself permission, they're going to feel it. Your presence gives them the green light to stop second guessing themselves and stop performing and stop waiting, and this is so you can be the kind of leader the world needs more of, like, especially in families and businesses and friendships and teams. Like, so how do you become that person? You don't need a title to do that. Like, you don't have to be the boss. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just need to practice different ways of showing up. So ask more than you advise. When someone comes to you looking for something, pause, before you pause and jump in, ask, like, instead of something like, ask them questions back, like, well, what feels right to you? If you weren't worried about anyone else's reaction, what would you have done? Again, that's sort of a shift where you start turning it back on them with curiosity. Like, the conversation goes from like dependence to self-trust. And that's a big win. Number 2, celebrate their courage, not just their outcome. Like, the team that makes a decision you wouldn't have picked, the employee that, took a different route than you suggested. It's okay. Instead of correcting, celebrate that they had the guts to take action. That they went with what they believed in. And that's how people grow. And then, of course, the third one there is going to be use permission-giving language. Swap out like the "you should" for like, "Hey, what if you gave yourself permission to try?" Or it sounds like you already know what you want. Maybe now it's time for you to follow through. And just phrasing like that hands that permission back to them. It gives them the authority back, and trust me, they feel it. And then let others lead even when you could take over. So stop here, try this. There's like a trust experiment you can do where like you let your kid plan the family outing. Let your employee run the project without micromanaging. Let your partner follow their passion without needing input first. Like, even when it's hard, even when, it's not how you do it, because the point isn't perfection, it's practice. It's building the muscle of self-trust in them and in you. And you're going to see what starts to happen. Your kids stop waiting for someone else to tell them what's possible. Your team starts bringing new, fresh ideas, because they're not afraid to mess up. Relationships deepen because people feel safe that their real selves, can be shared with each other. And the best part is like, you're not carrying the emotional weight for everyone else. You're free to be you. They're free to be them. The impact just ripples out from there. So yeah, like be the green light for others. Be the person who shows what's possible, but like not just what's possible, but how to live, not just by what you say. That's real leadership. That's the kind that multiplies without burning you out or burn out the people around you. And so as we bring this all together, as we land this like in a truth that I want you to hear out loud, like the permission that maybe you've been waiting for, it is not coming because it's not supposed to. You've had the authority all along to do this. Like you not to prove yourself. Just be yourself fully. You don't need a green light or permission slip. You are the green light. You are the permission slip. Everything we talked about today, from spotting, the places you're handing over your power, making faster decisions, holding boundaries, whatever it is, like it all leads to one thing. You don't need to earn the right to be who you want to be anymore. You don't have to stop waiting to be told it's okay. And listen, this doesn't mean becoming reckless or turning everyone out, right? It just means, tuning back into yourself so that you can listen to others without losing your voice in the process. It means being open but not available for everything. It means showing up with kindness and clarity, especially when you make a choice that others might not fully get, because the people who truly care about you, they want to see you thrive. They want to see you lit up and confident and alive. And the ones who only love the version of you that needs permission, well, like some of those relationships might need to shift a little. Some may stretch, some may grow with you, others may fall away, but you'll be left like with real connection. The kind that's built on deep respect and not control. So here's the deal. If this message hit home for you, like if you're done shrinking and hesitating or living under someone else's expectations, then it might be time to go deeper. And that's where you'd want to go get yourself a copy of The Giver Method on Amazon. The link's in the description. Like I said, it's packed with real-world strategies to help you reconnect with your gifts, create meaningful impact, and build the kind of life that you don't have to apologize for. If you're ready to work together one-on-one, dive in deeper into that and receive some one-on-one coaching, some spots are open. We can work side by side, talk about how that looks like. Check out the link below on coaching and read all the details. If it makes sense to book a call, book a call. And then if you have that event, podcast, lead the team, have that audience or whatever it is, and you want to bring this type of conversation to your space, then I'd love to connect. You can find the link down below. Speaking of podcasting, all of this is on thegivermethod.com as well. Now, most of all, though, if this is something that clicked for you today, drop a comment and tell me what stood out to you. What was your aha moment? What's the permission you're going to stop waiting for? What's the one decision you're finally going to make? And of course, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. We want to make sure that you have everything. Now, of course, like one of the most important things here is live like someone who's already been authorized, someone who already has the permission to do it, because you have that permission. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to move, you don't need more validation or more data. You just need to trust what's already inside you and give yourself the green light. This is your permission slip. It's signed, it's sealed, it's delivered. Go. Now is the time. Now go build the life that you want to live. And with that, I will just say, have a great rest of your day, and we will catch you in our next video. Have a good one.